everyone, it's Hannah B. I hope you enjoyed Kyle's lesson last week on dialogue and how to use it to enhance your characters. The last session I focused on setting and the different senses that you can really hone in on to create a well-developed environment and atmosphere for your story to take place. So if you missed that, head back to week 10 and catch up. This week I'm going to focus on point of view, and we've done lots of work on this in the past, but today I'm going to go further into narration and the dynamic ways we can use it to tell our story. So firstly, what is point of view? Well, point of view refers to the type of narrator that a writer chooses to use to convey a message in their story, whether the story that they are telling is fiction or non-fiction. You might ask why it's important. Well, the point of view in fiction determines whose eyes the reader experiences the story through. Therefore, choosing the appropriate point of view for your story is important, as each different type of narration you use has different effects on how the reader interprets what is going on. Basically, it's important that you're able to tell the difference and identify the different points of view and how they affect the story, as this will provide you with a deeper understanding of the characters and the events that are taking place. So let's go over some of the most popular points of view from which a text can be narrated. The first one we have is first person, and this is used when the story is coming from the writer themselves or through a character in the story who is most commonly the main character. The way that you can tell if a story is being told through first person is if the words I, me, mine, my are used. For example, I walked to the station stopping to tie my laces that had come loose. So as you can see here, the use of I and my means I am using first person narrative. Other than fiction, it's important to consider when else you would use first person narration. So you could use this in anything autobiographical, like a memoir or personal essay, because if it's you writing out about an experience that you had, then first person is commonly the best way to go. Then we have second person, which is a type of narration that the writer uses when they are writing directly to the reader and directly telling you what is taking place. For example, you feel the weight of the sun on your back, you see the horizon far ahead, your limbs feel heavy, but nothing can stop you now, you are almost there. Although this type of narration is not so commonly used in fiction, it can make the writing more exciting and feel as though it has taken place at that current moment for the reader, or make the story feel more personal. This type of narration is very effective in interactive books such as adventure game books, and you'll also commonly find it in instruction books too. Then we have third person, and this is often called third person limited. So this is used when the story is about he or she or they, and the writer uses third person pronouns to describe what is happening to another person, most commonly the main character as well. This means that the narrator is outside of the story, and it's often referred to as third person limited narration, as the narrator is relaying the experience of a particular character, but without having access to their innermost thoughts and feelings. So for example, Jane walked to the front door, she paused for a moment, turned around before heading to the kitchen to pick up her purse. So you can see here that the narrator does not know why Jane paused for a moment, turned around and headed back to the kitchen. Then we have third person omniscient, which will actually tell us why Jane turned around. So like third person limited, the story is still referencing a he, she or they and using third person pronouns. However, the narrator knows everything, and they are almost like an invisible entity that has access to all the thoughts and feelings of a character in a story. So like a god, for example. This narrator is called an omniscient narrator. So then we have that same example there, and it says, Jane walked to the front door, she paused for a moment, acknowledged that niggling feeling in the back of her head that was saying she'd forgotten something, before turning back to see her purse on the kitchen table. As you can see here, I've used that same previous example, however now the narrator has access to Jane's thoughts and knows why specifically she paused and returned to the kitchen, because she forgot her purse. So it's important to remember that as a reader, you may not always be able to trust the narrator. Some writers like to use the technique of an unreliable narrator to make their story more effective, by tricking the reader into believing that something has happened or taken place in the story. For example, I knew in my heart deep down that I hadn't opened the box. She just didn't believe me. Why would I open the box? I had no reason to. I could never open the box. In this passage, the character is relaying to the reader that they have not opened the box. The reader's first instinct is to believe them. However, it may become clear later on in the story that the character did open the box and lied to the reader to cover their own back. This is an interesting technique that writers can use to make their story more exciting and increase tension. Dishonest narrators can often be used to create great effect in stories of crime and mystery. Sometimes the lack of trustworthiness of an unreliable narrator is crucial to the construction of a novel's mystery. Often in books, the reader starts out trusting the narrator and only as the story goes on realises that something is wrong and they may not be so easily trusted after all. So then we have the question of which tense should you use in your writing? Well, there's no hard and fast rule about which tense you should use in your story. This is entirely up to you. It's common to begin with the first person point of view so you can really get used to how it works telling a story from the perspective of one character. But the most important rule regarding point of view is that it should be consistent throughout your story, because if a writer drifts from one point of view to another, the reader will pick up on it and in turn you may lose their attention. You want your reader to trust that they know who is telling the story and to get the full experience of what's happening to your character. So, activity time. I want you to write a story from the first person point of view, focus on one character, make them your protagonist and go from there. Then, using what you've just written in first person, write the same story from the third person omniscient point of view. Pretend that you're a god that can see everything that's happening on Earth or the planet where your story takes place, and that you have access to people's innermost thoughts. What would that look like for your characters? And then lastly, we have a bonus activity if you finish all of those, that you've to write a story from the perspective of someone who's just found out that they've won the lottery. Choose a tense and try to stick with it throughout your story. So that's all from me. I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. Have a great week and remember to share any of your creations on the Make and Create Facebook page.